Hello and welcome to a special edition of Bossing English, which is being recorded with a view to the exam a week today for AQA Literature Paper 2, which will be Macbeth and Unseen Poetry. This first video will look at the 24-mark Unseen Poetry question, approaches to that and how to boss that and get more marks. And then we'll look at the 8-mark comparison question and how best to answer that, with a little model answer as well. And then we'll probably look at some Macbeth questions at some point. Right, let's start with the with this one. Okay, so I've got my poem, but before I start looking at the poem, I'm going to move down and look at the question. In a London thoroughfare 2 a.m, how does the poet present the speaker's feelings about the city at night? So there are the key bits of information. Okay, present. What does present mean? Present means looking at methods and the effect on the reader. So that's what I need to be doing. I'm sorry, this is a new bit of software, so it's a bit funny for me to use. And then, as you can see, I've linked all of those things to meaning. So whenever I'm talking about any of these methods, language, structure or form, I want to kind of link it to meaning. Well, what do we mean by meaning here? Well, what's nice about this question is kind of directing you to one possible meaning of the poem that they want you to focus on. This poem is about someone who has feelings about the city at night, and already we know that those feelings are going to be quite obvious, hence they're asking you to look at it. On this little grid down here, you can see that I've got context, but I can delete that because on this question, that's supposed to... okay, on this question, there are no marks for context. You've got AO1, which is 12 marks, and that's personal response to the question and use of references, and AO2, which is 12 marks, which is analysis of language, structure and form, and the effect it has on the reader. There are also 4 marks. These 4 marks here are for high order vocabulary, the way you phrase your response, some spag marks if you're able to use things like semicolons or colons as well. You get some credit for that. So that's worth thinking about as well. All right, I've highlighted the question and I know what I've got to do, so I'm just going to kind of come back up here and take you through what I would do if I was answering this question. Let's start with the title. Now, sometimes the title can be a key to unlock a poem. If a poem doesn't make much sense on the first reading through, you might want to come back and see, well, what the title is directing you in some way to understand it or unlock it in some way. What can I pull out of this title? Well, I've got some specificity, some things that are really specific, such as specificity of place, it's all about London, and specificity of time, which is when things are happening in this poem. I've also got this, get rid of that rubbishy thing there, I've also got this funny word, thoroughfare, but they tell you what that means, which is street. All right, now with this question, what you want to be doing is looking for big obvious things. You're under time conditions, you'd probably spend 30 to 35 minutes on this question. And what you're looking for is big obvious things. So I'm going to start with something that I've noticed, which is a structural thing. We'll read the poem and then we'll go through it and I'll point out those structure features I've spotted. They have watered the street. It shines in the glare of lamps, cold white lamps, and lies like a slow-moving river, barred with silver and black. Cabs go down it, one and then another. Between them I hear the shuffling of feet. Tramps doze on the window ledges. Night walkers pass along the sidewalks. The city is squalid and sinister, with the silver-barred street in the midst, slow-moving, a river leading nowhere. Opposite my window, the moon cuts clear and round through the plum-coloured night. She cannot light the city. It is too bright. It has white lamps and glitters coldly. I stand in the window and watch the moon. She is thin and lustreless, but I love her. I know the moon, and this is an alien city. We're going to start with structure. One of the things you want to think about with structure is structure, as well as being the way things are organised. And if we look at this, we've got three stanzas, various lengths. That's something I could talk about. Maybe the way that things shift between each of these stanzas. There's a shift of focus, maybe like there would be in a story. That was one possibility. So as well as the way it looks on the page, you also want to be thinking about sequencing. Structure means like how things start and how they end and how they change along the way. So one of the things, whenever you're looking at any poem, where does it start, where does it end, and what's changed between the start and the end? What we're going to see is we get a lot of imagery to do with how the nighttime city looks and how it makes, and we can spot the feelings of the speaker through the way that imagery is used. We get some contrast here. I think that's quite interesting, with something far away from the city, which ironically or paradoxically feels closer. And then it concludes by using this metaphor. This is an alien city, and it's a very strange word, alien, for something that's terrestrial and grounded in the earth. So that's quite significant, and we'll come back to that. Okay, what's one of the first things I noticed about this poem? Well, it was the way that the line lengths vary, especially in that opening stanza. We get lines of one word, one compound verb there. So those varied line lengths, I think, give that opening stanza a meandering feel. And how can I link that to the question? Well, I think the speaker feels lost, disoriented in this nighttime city. Everything is made strange and uncanny in here. When I was looking at that title, I'll just come back to this because it's something I've forgotten to do. Already, because I've read the poem and I know where it goes, I would be thinking it's bound to be highlighting the contrast between what the city normally feels like in the daytime and to how it is at night. And the word I would use for that is defamiliarization. That's my fancy high order vocabulary there, where something familiar, the daytime city, is made strange. That's going to lead to feelings of the uncanny and strangeness. And where's that coming from? Well, it's depopulated and it's kind of nocturnal, and you get that kind of darkness that's being kind of making everything feel strange. In fact, you get a lot of weird light in this poem, but we'll come back to that. So with this idea of defamiliarization, this meandering feel is giving me that there. Now, one nice thing about this is I can go from a structural point to a language point, which would be this metaphor and simile, and lies like a slow-moving river, barred with silver and black, with the silver-barred street in the midst, slow-moving, a river leading nowhere. So I can tie that feeling of being lost and disoriented and meandering to this simile here, which then becomes a metaphor. So you get this idea of development. It's kind of extended here. And of course, a river leading nowhere links to feelings of nihilism and despair, and I think I would exploit that and use that there. I think also we're being invited to explore this idea here, lies, with the word, the enjambment there, where it ends on the word lies, invites two meanings of the word. Lies as in laying there and visible, and lying as in telling an untruth. And again, we might link to feelings of the uncanny and defamiliarization there if we explore that. Barred with silver and black, I think also can be tied to feelings of defamiliarization and uncanny and feeling lost. There's a sense of being trapped or enclosed there in barred. So there's quite a lot you can get out of that. One more thing I'm going to look at is another language point. I'm going to just change the colour there, and we're going to look at, I'll just make it so you know what that is, a semantic field that we get in this poem. So we get glare, cold white lamps, too bright, white lamps glitter coldly, and I think that's probably it. So I would say what we have here is a semantic field of cold brightness, which again is paradoxical because it's supposed to be the city at night. And this cold brightness is making the speaker feel uncomfortable. You know, the adverb there, coldly, glitters coldly seems to be, again, slightly paradoxical, oxymoronic. Too bright, the intensifier too, suggesting a problem. Glare, suggesting that there's something negative about this. So I think, again, you could tie this to these feelings of being lost, disorientated, and things feeling strange and defamiliarized here. The other thing I could tie this to is this very direct language. The city is squalid and sinister, those two adjectives making it very clear the kind of menace that's being felt here as well, squalid and sinister, and I think we can tie that into the lights and the sense of things being changed, like streets being cleaned with water suddenly become slow-moving rivers, and there's this kind of weird metamorphosis that happens at night. And all of that then can be tied to that last idea of an alien city, something that feels uncanny, unstrange, extraterrestrial, not of this earth. And then I can pivot from there to the last thing I want to say, which is that there is a contrast being made with something that's very distant, the moon, which appears kind of soft and pleasant in comparison to the glaring bright lights, clear and round, plum-coloured. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't think that's right. Now, what's the relationship the speaker has with the moon? I love her. I mean, it's personified. We get she. And I know her. So something that's distant is more lovable. Moon is more lovable and knowable than the near-at-hand city at night, which is unknowable and strange and frightening and menacing and alien. Right. If I put all that together, I would have a pretty good answer, and I would have covered language structure. The only thing I haven't covered there is form, and I always forget to do this. This is the, I won't tell you how many times I've recorded this video and it's failed, so I'm not going to jinx it again now. How can I use form? Well, form we're going to talk about in a second video, but here, the only thing I could say that is of any relevance to what I have been saying in order to answer that question, it's free verse. And maybe the use of free verse can link to that meandering sense that the poem has at the start and feeling lost and disorientated. And maybe I want to highlight that being like unbound, unrestricted. And this is maybe frightening for the speaker. All right, if you like that, smash that like button, do something appropriate to the subscribe button, and I will be back with more videos very soon. Bye for now.